Hello and welcome to Lazada Insider, featuring knowledge that makes a difference. We share trusted insights, forward-looking perspectives, and exclusive expert interviews to keep you ahead of the curve.
Hi, I'm your host, Katrina, and welcome to Lazada Insider. Don't forget to follow this channel for exclusive insights every week. But personally, I find today's topic very interesting and extremely useful. The experience we have right now, living through the pandemic, is really changing all aspects of our lives and in ways that will alter some of our behavior long after the pandemic subsides. So, for businesses, the burning question is really among all the changes that are happening right now when it comes to consumer behaviors, what are those that will be here to stay post COVID in Southeast Asia? And what is the implication for businesses? So, to answer that, we have expert guest Gracie joining us today from Kadence International. Gracie has more than 20 years of experience in market research. And with her extensive knowledge on market research and consumer behavior, she has worked with a lot of different clients across a variety of sectors. And currently, she's the Insight Director at Kadence. Hi, Gracie. It's great to have you on Lazada Insider.
Thanks, Katrina. It's good to be here.
Yeah, let's probably start with letting our audience know more about you. I'm very keen to understand more on what your position entails as the Insight Director at Kadence International.
Sure. Well, as Insight Director, I do take care of the market research studies, both in Singapore and across the region. So that includes working with clients both in the government space as well as the commercial space. Yeah.
And let's probably delve into today's topic. COVID-19 has already crossed 1 year mark in Southeast Asia. And as I mentioned in the intro, there's no doubt that the pandemic has resulted in great changes in consumer behaviors, their priorities, and so on. So let's start with some observations from the past first. Could you elaborate on what behaviors have become more prevalent since the pandemic in Southeast Asia?
Sure. Well, as you'd expect, because of the pandemic, a lot of the activities have gone online or digital. So some of it's not surprising. So things like entertainment, people streaming online content has certainly become more prevalent. Things like online gaming, again, especially in Southeast Asia, has also become more prevalent. And again, if you look at the Southeast Asian markets or Asia Pacific more specifically, you would see a lot of the digital transformation happening. So a lot more people are going and shopping online, both for groceries as well as non-groceries. They're doing things like online learning or even things like socializing with friends a lot of it has just gone online rather than what we've seen where a lot of the face-to-face things are not necessarily happening anymore.
And we do see that, with vaccination now started to roll out, although I would say at different paces across countries in Southeast Asia, at least I would say hope is on the horizon for Southeast Asia countries. We know that it will, gradually recover. And this is exactly when businesses start to look to the post-pandemic world and wondering, which of those behavior will stick in the future. And but before we talk about those specific profound impacts, what are the key factors that determine whether a behavior will stick or not?
Well, when we did our study, we also it's also important to bear in mind that even though they say that it's something that they might do, it's difficult to tell because people will always say they do something. It's hard to predict the future. So we looked at different things in order to look at what those specific behaviors are that will determine what they'll do in the future. So we looked at things like, is it convenient? Is it time saving? Is it cost effective? Is it enjoyable? And is it personally rewarding? So different behaviors answer those different needs. So for example, something like streaming video content is certainly something enjoyable, but that's not necessarily cost effective. Or something like shopping for groceries online, definitely convenient and time saving, but then again, not necessarily something that's enjoyable for people. So each of the different markets and each person will certainly have their own motivations for whether or not they continue to do certain behavior or whether or not because it doesn't meet a certain need that they have, then they'll probably start doing it or do it less post the pandemic. So one of the interesting things we also found in our study was that, when things go quote unquote back to normal, a lot of people still won't go back to the activities that they did pre-pandemic. So the idea of going out and eating out, or going to the movies or the theater, or even shopping in retail stores, a lot of people say that they'll do a lot less of it, even when things go back to normal. So while there's hope with all the vaccinations going on, and hopefully that'll continue, I think businesses should be wary of just expecting consumers to go back to their normal behavior pre-pandemic.
Let's talk about then specific behaviors that consumer
Mhm.
will continue doing after, let's say, with minimal restrictions or without restriction at all.
Mhm.
And more interestingly, what are the implications for Southeast Asia businesses?
Sure. So a few key things that we found in terms of what are those things that consumers say that they will continue doing, and which also meets their needs. So we think that these are the behaviors that will continue in the future. So things like shopping online, both for groceries as well as non-grocery items, are things that are very likely to continue. Things like learning skills online is also one of the things that came out. A lot of it was also related to food and beverages. So during the pandemic, we found people saying that they're planning they're planning meals from home, or they're cooking things from scratch, or they're making celebrations at home to make it more special. So these are the kinds of things that we think will continue in the future.
So what does it mean for businesses in Southeast Asia? How do they sort of, tailor their strategies or their plans to these specific needs of consumers in the future?
I mean, knowing that there's certainly a lot of things that businesses, if they haven't thought about it yet, or if they're just in the initial stage of thinking about it, they should be thinking about these things already, given the importance of these digital changes and these digital transformations and the way that consumer behavior is changing. Businesses really need to think about, if they haven't yet, what they can do to make the digital experience for consumers better. Whether that's making sure that they're on the correct platforms, or even within their websites that they're showcasing their products properly, their products and services properly, is going to be very key. So because competition has certainly increased, because more and more businesses are going online, businesses need to make sure that they're able to differentiate how they sell their products, and that they provide enough information and the correct information for consumers to be able to appreciate their products. For example, and I think you've talked about this in some of your other features, is this whole idea of live streaming. So, for example, live streaming, it certainly provides opportunities for consumers to kind of interact with the store digitally, and it also provides businesses a chance to connect with their consumers. So that live streaming takes care of a lot of different things. You can demonstrate the products, you allow the consumers to give feedback. A lot of fear these days is about kind of fake products or fake companies. So consumers being able to see what you're actually selling, and being able to kind of have a person behind that product or behind that brand selling it, I think reassures a lot of consumers. So one of the other things I think businesses also need to think about is just their delivery systems. So, for example, a lot of wholesalers have realized that maybe they need to think about like a direct consumer type delivery system, especially now that consumers are putting more things in their grocery baskets online. So rather than just selling wholesale to the big retail stores, how do these kind of wholesale business reach out to the consumers? And what are all the delivery options that they can do? So we've seen this a lot with maybe some of the F&B retailers, where they didn't used to have a delivery service, or they had like a minimum quota in order to be able to deliver. We see that changing quite a bit in the F&B space. And I think some of the retailers, especially those that don't necessarily offer retail products, find in terms of converting that to a more consumer-friendly delivery system. if consumers are going to, and for all intents and purposes, what they've stated is that they will continue to do these behaviors. So it's important that businesses respond to those. If you look again at the F&B space, if people are saying that they're making things from scratch or cooking at home, what is it that, say, F&B retailers are doing to be able to meet that need? So rather than just selling individual food items, for example, we've seen companies kind of package these things up and then sell that as a package to consumers. So, for example, we saw this big trend of bread baking come in online. So rather than have consumers buy flour or salt or whatever it is, or yeast individually, some enterprising vendors have then packaged these things together in pre-packaged measurements, so that it's easier for the consumer to kind of have that experience at home. So it's thinking about those little things, like how can you package your products, or how can you package your services to make it easier for the consumer to reach you and to appreciate what you're selling.
Well, excellent sharing, Gracie. The insights you shared with us certainly help pave the way forward for many businesses in this part of the world. And there are a lot of takeaways to really think about for business to be fully prepared to address the consumer need and capture the opportunities when things are getting better. And, let's hope that the wait won't be too long. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you very much, Gracie.
Thanks, Katrina. Thanks for having me.
This is Lazada Insider. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you click follow and subscribe so you don't miss our latest insights and expert interviews. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Lazada.